Welcome to the QB School. I am JT O'Sullivan. Today, we are going X's and O's, deep dive, the levels concept. Now, this one can be confusing because lots of different teams, programs, organizations run variations of levels. We're going to talk about what I think are the three most common, dive into it in detail. I think you're going to dig it. Let's get it going. Welcome to the QB School. So the levels concept to me gets muddy really quickly because levels means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Let's kind of break it down to its absolute core. Levels on all different variations of levels means that there are going to be different depths of routes all breaking in. So it can be a shallow cross, it can be kind of a mid-tier cross, it can be a deeper in. All those go in the same direction on different levels. You got it. That's levels. Now, where it gets confusing is sometimes the levels is the backside of a concept. Sometimes it is the primary read of a concept. Usually those things are called different things, although some offenses call them all levels. Confused yet? So let's slow it down again. Levels, usually all in-breaking routes happening at different depths. What is different is it the primary read or is it a backside read? All those things wrapped together are often thrown into the same trash can of levels. I think of them as all different plays. We're going to talk about them as different plays. We're going to talk about them all using the same term, levels. But I think you will be able to see the evolution of this concept and how we are now probably at where we're at with how it's used most often. So let's get it started. We're going to start with my progression of learning it. As soon as I got in the league, New Orleans, Gulf Coast offense, Mike McCarthy, the offense coordinator, levels. So New Orleans Saints, this is a pure progression, PP in the terminology back in the day. And the levels concept right here is this shallow cross and this in or basic. And the idea being in this offense in the West Coast world at the time, this was a backside route. So we could tag anything to it. Right here, it was tagged with Okie. It could be tagged with Smash. It could be tagged with anything you want here on the front side. And so you can see it was 1, alert versus certain looks. That's West Coast jargon. 2, 3. So again, the thing that I loved about this concept at the time, again, this levels, different levels on the backside, West Coast world back in the day, was that it all came into the quarterback's vision. So if you were set over here working one of these two routes, these routes were going to come into your vision. So there was a little bit of the drive concept here. Again, just a cleaner, different way to get there, different guys running different routes. But at the end of the day, it's just a shallow and an in coming from the backside. And so that's the way that it was run for a long time. And it was just a simple way to tag so you could do half field concepts, anything you wanted to the front side. Curl, flat, anything you want, all go. Smash, pump, whatever you want, option routes, anything you wanted. But it was always that backside element that was the levels. Now, the thing to pay attention to that was always confusing for me, especially early in the league, was that very rarely do you have the number one receiver on one side and the hot to the other side. So again, just going through the play here. Zebra, 11 personnel, West Coast world, wide right is the formation. Open sets the tight end. Detached, 2-jet, 6-man slide protection, the back to the right. Okie is the out to the left. Levels is the concept we're talking about. So when you get 2-jet here, 2-jet right here puts a dual read for the back, 1 to 2. If both these people were to blitz, we would have to throw hot right there. Again, 2 lines through a route for me is a hot signal, an H. So again, very rare to have the number one read on one side of the field and the hot to the other side of the field. So just a little nuanced thing about how levels can be played when it's a backside concept. A few more examples from those New Orleans days. Again, it really doesn't matter who's doing the levels here. E was just the 4th receiver in that offense. Again, different ways to get there from different personnels, 12 personnel, whatever ace was. I'm guessing 20 personnel or 10 personnel back in the day. Again, you can see the note for myself. This is one of those weird plays that I still have it seared in my brain. The hot is away from the number one receiver. It's kind of a learned way to manipulate your eyes. So if for some reason you think you're going to get like a strong dog to this side, it's really hard to drop under center These people drop out of there and you throw a, essentially speed out the opposite direction. Difficult living right there. Another way to do the exact same play, this time going the opposite direction. Again, 3 rocket. All 3 rocket is weak side jet. It's really the exact same protection for everyone, just to the weak side now. Again, we got the flanker running that Oki. Again, it doesn't matter what the front side concept is. The levels in this offense was backside shallow, number 2, backside in or basic, number 3. So it all, again, for me playing quarterback, the thing that I loved was no matter what it was, I knew that my secondary and third receivers on the pure progression were going to be coming into my line of vision. I didn't have to go from, hitch or curl over here all the way to hitch or curl on the other side of the field. Everything was going to run into my vision. And those types of things have still stuck with me on how I like to construct some of these concepts. Next one we'll talk about here is from the Green Bay days, 76 Ohio. Again, spread right is a formation. Eagle, zebra, the personnel, 20 or 10 personnel. 76 was their kind of solid or man pass pro here. So that's a way, again, to manipulate. Now you can see where the hot is on a different side. So they did it. They didn't do it out of straight slide or turn back protection. They did a more Mike declared. So the line was going to the Mike. The back had the Will, and the quarterback had the Sam. So if this Sam were to come, now this is to the front side. Again, a little bit easier. You got to be intentional with how these hots are constructed. It doesn't happen by accident. So again, that's the difference in an offense. A little subtle thing. Organizations running the same exact plays, technically all West Coasty, but how you construct the hots can make life easier for the quarterback. So again, doesn't matter what's on the front side. Right here, we got like a hinge on it. You can see backside level 2, backside in or basic 3. Again, all the same. Doesn't matter what offense it was. This is levels. So now I think the more common variation of levels, once you got outside of that old school West Coast world, was what most people refer to as a fin route, a short in, an Indy even. And really this is made popular from the Colts. Peyton Manning, I can think of Marvin Harrison just catching this thing like it's a handoff, 5-yard in route. And really it's not quite an in route. It's like 5 yards and they come in under control. They're not going to run to get covered. So that's now the primary. The short in is the primary, usually tethered with a 10-yard in or basic, which is now the second read. So it's just 1 to 2. It goes from being the backside route in the West Coast world of levels to now the front side primary read. And again, not all teams call these plays levels. I've seen it called chair. I've seen it called Indy. I've seen it called fin. You call it whatever you want. It's still 2 in-breaking routes happening at different depths. So the first time that I really played this play was when I was in Cincinnati. Again, out of just about any personnel group here, divide right is the formation, Ron is the protection, 460 go. So again, the 4 here talks to the X, running the curl, which they call the 4. The 6 was the in, and then the short 0 was this little Indy route. So the read here for me, most often now, it's going to depend on the coverage. But if you work this side, it was 1 to 2, just like that. 1, 2, nice and easy. And I just remember just handoffs, handoffs, handoffs. Anything where a flat defender wasn't standing in this space, really working towards that number 1, these were just little easy handoffs. Couldn't make it any easier of a throw. Come up and then under control. And it wasn't like, it's not quite the same as a slant. There's some real kind of nuance and feel to this route where quarterbacks and wide receivers get on the same page. Again, that Cincinnati playbook that I has the reads underneath those plays. So they had it here 3 deep, basically a rotational read. So you just go away from the down safety, whatever it is, and then any sort of 2 deep, you're going to work that slow 0, which was the in route or fin route, to the Y on that in. So again, middle field closed, rotation. So right here would be the notes. Middle field closed, rotation, open, equals whatever you want to call it. Indy, basic, if I could write it. Boom. Now, one of my very favorite variations of this is Indy or short in or levels from the Colts was, in my opinion, good versus just about everything except 2-man. 2-man, no bueno. You're going to have inside leverage, man, hard, over the top, help. So what do? You don't want 2 in-breaking routes. So it was very complicated. And I remember hearing stories about this, and then we actually played against Manning, and he did it. I want to say he did it to Dallas Clark, maybe. All he does, call this play, sees two-man, and goes, hey, Dallas, running out, whatever they say. Could be anything. Running out. And now you've got a great two-man beater with this basically good versus everything else concept, which was their levels. So that basic now goes from this to being a clean out. You can still read it 1 to 2 if you want, but you know if you get two-man here, you're going to get this great outbreaking route. Again, two-man to me, you're going to get hard inside leverage. Probably somebody stacked up on you right here. If not inside, you're going to be able to get this. This thing's going to eat that corner up, and you're going to have all this space. I can just remember so much space out here. For the longest time, I thought it was just a corner route that they were on the same page, but really they were just communicating to each other, hey, flip it out here, nice, easy, change the in from the out, and now it's good versus a different type of coverage. Again, hot-wise here with Ron for us. Ron, off the top of my head, was a solid man declared protection, 6-man protection. If the Sam were to blitz, this little turnout just means that he's going to run like a little stick. So instead of coming up and just opening inside and you throw it right there. That's what this hot turnoff means. So nice, easy way, great adjustment versus two-man. All right, that's great. Those are old school concepts, different ways to do levels. How's it done now? Ooh, let's take a look at a little bit more recent of a playbook here to see how maybe the terminology changes. Call it whatever you want. Strawberry milkshake, branch, curb, whatever. It is levels. So Shanahan world now, again, some West Coast connections here as far as how this thing is constructed. They call their levels follow. So again, we got the front side concept. Right here they're running what they call branch, which is just a out and a must outside release go, but it could be anything on this side as the primary read. The number 2 now, it's a little bit different. It's not quite the same. Remember, originally in that West Coast world, it was almost like a shallow and the inner basic like this. Now they're running it a little bit more like what I think the Colts ran it, as that kind of primary 1 with the 2 basic here. Now they just go 1 to 2 to 3. So again, the reason why it's like this, everything is in line for the quarterback. Again, you're just moving left to right or right to left. Nice, easy, simple, pure progression plays. Here's a few more Shanahan examples. Again, branch with the follow. Again, just different ways to get there. You can see potentially if you've got a dynamic fullback, 12 personnel, 21 personnel, you can get there a whole bunch of different ways, but it doesn't matter for what we're talking about. Levels, follow, whatever you want to call it, curb, milkshake, here it is. It's the backside in this West Coast world as opposed to the primary in the Peyton Manning world. So now let's talk digit offense. So the digit offense that I was in, we didn't really have what I would classify as a clean levels concept. What we did run is a bit of a more deeper down the field variation of levels. And all it really is 2 ins. Same thing as levels, except it's really inverted. So now the inside in is a little bit more shallow and the outside in is a little bit more deep down the field. Goes from being kind of that shorter passing game with the 5-yard in somewhere or shallow involved to now that kind of mid-size 10, 12, 14 as the primary with that deep NFL in 20 yards deep. So the levels are just deeper levels, but it's still the same concept, trying to get the defense on different areas of the field, breaking in at the same direction on different levels of depth. And so it allows you to really have a clean progression. 1, 2 at the shorter in to the deeper in. It doesn't matter how you necessarily do it, whether it's the short levels that we've talked about so far or this deeper variation of levels. Digit world doesn't get much cleaner than this from back in my Detroit days. I right formation, act 6, 7-man slide protection. We've got the 5, which is the comeback, and then double 4s. And so they just had to have it learned by the tight end type that he's got a little bit shallower, that basic mid-range kind of hunt, 14 yards here, and you just read this thing 1 to 2. And if you love this comeback on the backside, 1-on-1, you can take it. But it's just clean, again, easier, different, obviously way different than a 5-yard in right here, but still attacking the defense in the same vein. Another example from the digit world, again, now we're just at a slot, I right slot. Again, same 7-man slide protection. Instead of a comeback, it's a 7. The single receiver now has the corner from the tight end position, and we run this 44. The read here is a little bit different because I pulled this out of a game plan notebook, so this was versus a specific look. But these types of things changed all the time, specifically with Mike Martz. The read would be different every single week. But at the end of the day, it was usually 1 to 2 to 3. If you didn't want to learn kind of the week-to-week detailed adjustments, 1, 2, 3, and this is really an alert. Mike used to love this thing versus press. So just different ways to read it. It's always going to change week to week, but at the end of the day, different variation of levels. And then finally, this was one of my favorite variations off this 44 or double in play, and we used to use this in the red zone all the time. This thing would take a while, a hot minute, usually a 7-step drop here. Again, it is basically deep whips or arrows. You see a lot of people run these in and out whips now off the shallow. This is really off the in, and it used to have this little burst release too, up, get them going this way, and then spin out of it right here. And I mean, it is impossible. It's almost like in inverted levels though, right? You're going back out this way, going back out this way at different depth. This was usually kind of the front pylon. This was usually kind of the back pylon. Great red zone area play if you could hold up here enough to have this thing work. But for me, again, the read was always a little bit different. Again, closed or man, we're working the spins inside out, 1 to 2. If it was open, you got caught in some sort of like red quarters down there in the red area, you're almost strictly that inside guy down to the back with the check down. So just different ways to work different variations of what the levels concepts creates and stresses for the defense. So that's a wrap. X's and O's, levels. Hopefully we were able to make something that can be a little bit complicated when we start talking about using the same word for similar concepts that aren't quite the same. So again, one more review. Levels, 3 different ways. The first way that I learned it was as a backside concept, meaning that there's going to be something front side, and then we're going to have a shallow and an in coming towards our vision. Then there is probably the most common way that it's referred to, and that's the way that Peyton Manning kind of made famous with the Colts, where that short in is the primary, the number 1 receiver, and that number 2 deeper in is the number 2 receiver. So it's kind of that 5-yard in, 10 to 12-yard in with that adjustment versus 2-man to run that out or sail. And then finally, the digit world, they used to run a deeper version of levels, kind of with that inside receiver running that mid in, that 12 to 14-yard in, and the outside wide receiver running that deep in 20-yard in that you see in the league all the time by the outside wide receiver. So 3 different variations of levels: backside, primary, and deeper. So thanks so much for hanging to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I will see you next time. Have a good one.